everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree if you're new here, and today I'm going to be telling you all about my favorite books that I have read in 2021. Let's get right into it. So the first book that I want to talk about is November 9 by Colleen Hoover, and Colleen Hoover has been a beloved icon in the newfound social media book realm. This is because there's always a surprise. There's always some suspense in the book, and it just really keeps readers hooked. This book is about Fallon, and it's November 9th, and she is at a restaurant with her dad, and her dad is not a great dad, and you learn that half of her body is burned, and so she likes to hide her face and her body with her hair. She's sitting with her dad, and her dad is chastising her about her life decisions, and also the fact that she doesn't have a boyfriend. And Ben slides into the booth and pretends to be her boyfriend, and they have this great chemistry, and they just end up fooling her dad, and they end up spending the rest of the day together. But Fallon remembers that she doesn't want to date until she's 22, I believe. She ends up moving to New York, packing all of her things the next day after she's met Ben, and they decide to meet the next year on November 9 as well. And they do that for 5 years, and a lot of things happen. The way that it's told and how you only get a snippet, but yet so much depth into their life on that one specific day, yet somehow like Colleen can just hook you. The format, she just actually did it so successfully, where I think a lot of authors wouldn't be able to pull that off. I read it in 3 sittings. Book number 2 is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and this book has recently been adapted into a movie, and let me just say, it is for a reason. This book was actually hilarious. Not a lot of fiction books are actually funny. I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with, a lot of the time when you read it, maybe it's come out 10 years ago and the jokes that were said back then are no longer funny. This is not the case with this book. It's not like cliche jokes. The book is a workplace romance, but really it's not a romance. It is the haters to lovers trope. So for the majority of the book, they hate each other. Lucy and Josh both work at an editing company, and they're both assistants to the CEOs. There are 2 CEOs. This is because the businesses had to merge. This firm is more about the numbers and analytics, just what are they going to do to get the most amount of engagement that they can, whereas the other company where Lucy is from is just really about the art of writing. Lucy and Josh hate each other. Their rivalry is just seen throughout the book. Lucy starts to date this other guy, and you can kind of see that Josh is like maybe catching some feelings. They end up doing a couple things together, and you know, I'm not going to tell you the ending, but you can assume how it goes. It's just really cute and so easy to read. Romance books, a lot of them are just so cliche. You're just going to read it and you're going to know exactly what's going to happen. But there are so many other twists and turns within the book that you're not going to really expect it. And the ending was so beautiful. I do not think that Sally could have written it better. If you're going to watch the movie, read the book first. That is all I have to say. Of course, the book is always better. I am not telling you guys about these books in a particular order. If I were, I would have talked about this book first. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know. This author is definitely like, it's a tie for first with this author. Like, he's one of my favorite authors because his writing is so beautiful. And I don't know if it's just me, but I just tend to favor authors that are British or Australian. I just feel like it just sounds better. Ugh, Alex. Basically, this book is a thriller, a psychological thriller. I will admit, I get scared easily, but this is not scary. This book is about Alicia Berenson, and she's an artist. She's married to the perfect husband. Her husband is a photographer, I believe, so also another artist, and they just have the perfect life. And then all of a sudden, one night, she kills her husband. Crazy. Nobody expects it. And then after that, she goes mute. When this book starts, it's 7 years later, and she still has not spoken a word. She's at this facility, and this man named Theo, who is a psychotherapist, really wants to work with her. He's so fascinated by the whole case because after she kills her husband, she paints this piece about it, but nobody can get this girl to talk. You can see where the suspense is coming in because you know that Theo's gonna do something. You know that something's gonna happen. And so Theo Leo starts to talk to her, and slowly he's starting to piece together things. At the same time, you're looking into both of their paths. He starts to investigate her background and also the nights leading up to the murder. It's so fast-paced. Oh my god, you see the clues. No, there is no way you're gonna guess this ending, and that is what makes it so beautiful. It makes you really think. I wholeheartedly suggest you read this book. Book number 4 is Dark Skies. Dark Skies is actually the second book in this trilogy. The thing about this series is that you can either read the second or the first book first. You just need to read both the second and the first before you get to the third. I recommend that you read the second first because in my opinion, it is more engaging than the first. This is actually a fantasy book. I read this book without knowing that it was the second book because it doesn't mention anything about it and you can thoroughly understand what's going on. But there are some things after I've recommended it to people that it's just a little confusing until you hit that aha moment. Like 100 to 200 pages into the book, so it kind of takes a while to get into it. The book is about 2 different people. The first is Lydia. She's the daughter of a senator and she lives in a developed world and there's no magic. She is the favorite daughter of the senator, the only kin of the senator. The senator was never married and she is basically adopted. The senator marries her off to this other senator who is becoming the prime minister, and everybody hates this guy, but everybody's scared of him because he's either blackmailing them or will kill them if they speak out against him. Just a very disgusting man, but Lydia's father is very honorable. The thing about Lydia is that she is of a race that people look down upon, but she has been raised in an educated and very high up house, and so for her to marry, it would be very difficult. Anyway, she's married off to the senator. They hate each other because she's not afraid to speak her mind. Love that. And he actually tries to kill her in the beginning before they're even married. This military man tries to drown her in this pool and she goes down the drain and ends up touching this stone, which is called a Zenthyr stone, and it will transport you to a different world. You actually have no idea where you're going once you touch it. So it's really like touch this and, you know, maybe fall off the edge of a cliff or just be put in the same country or be put in the middle of the ocean. Like, you have no idea, or die. So that was her choice, and she decided to touch the Zenthyr, and she ends up in a different world. It's very different than her home. In this place, they have magic. This is Killian's home. This is the other character. Killian has been blessed by the god of war, and he has a gift for fighting combat, and he actually loses in a battle to protect his homeland. Since he lost this huge battle, he's back in the capital, and his punishment is to protect the princess. Their worlds collide, and it's basically a forbidden type of love, action, romance, all the good things. So the next book I want to talk about is more of a serious book. It's called Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. If you've heard of her, it's probably because of her other book, Little Fires Everywhere, and that is a Hulu series. So good. Both of these books have really intense social issues that they're talking about, and they're set in either the 70s or the 80s. This book, Everything I Never Told You, is about a Chinese American family. The dad, James, is Chinese, and he was born and raised in California, but his parents were immigrants. He had a very hard upbringing. His wife that he ended up marrying is Marilyn, and she is white. She has never really experienced this, but her mom raised her as a single mom and raised her with the mindset of, you're just gonna be a stay-at-home mom. And Marilyn did the exact opposite of that. She went to college, met James, got pregnant, lost her dream. That is not what the book is really about. It's about her daughter. She has 3 children with James, and the middle daughter is found dead in the lake. Everybody's thinking it's suicide. You follow all of the members of this family, their backgrounds, like what's happened with them. What do they know about Lydia? Because all of them know things, or they have secrets. There's so much going on underneath the surface in a family that nobody knows about. There are so many different dynamics in different types of families. It was just a very difficult read. I think it's just always important to read difficult books like this. And the next book that I read, actually directly after Everything I Never Told You, was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. And wow, this is the last book that I read, and it's just a book high after I read it. I just don't know what book I'm gonna read next because it's gonna need to be good. This book is about Jess, and she is a single mom. She lives in a like smaller suburb of San Diego, I believe, with her best friend Fizzy. They work together every single day at this coffee shop. This guy comes in every single day and they call him Americano. They don't know what his name is, but he always orders an Americano. The worker tells them one day that this guy, who seems so broody, so negative, yet exceedingly handsome, is founding this company to matchmake people. They do not believe it. Jess stops him and is like asking him questions about it. He has done extensive research throughout his PhD. They've been evaluating over 3,500 genes to find compatibility between people to see if they are genetically soulmates. So she took the test and matches with Americano. So this was a very, very big deal. She decides to pursue it only because they offered her financial compensation, and as a single mom, she's like, okay, I need this. And of course, they start to actually have feelings for each other, and it felt so easy and good to read. The 7th book I want to talk about is A Darker Shade of Magic. And actually, I technically read this book in 2020, but I read the 3rd book in this series this year. Loved it. The series is just so good. I'm going to tell you about the first one. This is a fantasy book. By the cover, you can see like there's different circles on it, and yet they all have meaning. And V. Schwab is another author like Alex that there's a purpose for everything in her book. Anyways, the thing about this series is it is set in London. But there's actually 4 different Londons. There's different universes. Multiverses, I don't know. There is red, black, white, and gray London. Red London has magic, and they use magic in their everyday lives. It's just, they thrive. And then there's gray London, which would be like a normal London. Like they don't know that magic exists, and it's just kind of bleak. Ugh. And then there's white London, which is like kind of crazy. They know that magic once existed, but they don't have access to magic in their world. All of the bad things are happening to the people of White London. And then there's Black London, and Black London no longer exists, and that is because the magic collapsed in on itself. It's just dead. The book's main character is Kel, and Kel is an Antari. Antari are like the embodiment of magic. Like they can do anything. What is so special about the Antari is that they can travel between worlds, and no other being can do that. There's only one other Antari. It's like this whole thing. And Kel is an ambassador for Red London. Kel will often go to White London and Gray London to ensure relations. But Kel, unbeknownst to Red London, has this little dealing side business. He will take magical things and bring them to Grey London to sell them in the black market. One day he's there, he gets pickpocketed, and this object that is stolen from him, you don't know what it is, but it is extremely important to him. And this person who pickpockets him is Delilah Bard. She's just fending for herself. She ends up saving Kel that same night. She forces him to allow her to come on this adventure with him to save all the worlds. It's so good. And that's the thing with fantasy. There is just so much thought put into these things, and it's just so adventurous and fun. And the 8th and final book is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. This is just another good romance. It's about 2 people that are actually engaged. Yes, they are engaged. The main character, Naomi, this is solely from her perspective, realizes that she hates her fiance. He's too perfect. But they both know that whoever calls off the wedding is in charge for fulfilling all of the wedding fees. She is trying to get him to call it off. And the thing is, into the book, she realizes that he also is no longer with it with her. He's not feeling it either. And it becomes this thing of like where they're both trying to get the other to fold. Lighthearted vibes. So good. Those were my favorite books that I read in 2021. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.